Basically what it means is this. Combatives is any method, principle, concept, way of thinking, or physical skill that has proved its worth under real fight duress conditions.
Welcome everyone to episode number 3 of Pinoy Martial Arts Mastermind. Unfortunately, today we have two absentees. Alfred and Franco are not going to be with us today, but we have a special guest, and this is actually a special segment that we'd like to call Misunderstood Martial Arts. And our guest for today is Mr. Lee Morrison of Urban Combatives, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what he does and what his background is and what he has to say to all the naysayers out there. All right. So again, we will be, as usual, we'll be joined again. My name is Dax, and then we are joined by Dr. Sixto, and of course Mr. Lee Morrison. So welcome to the show, Lee.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
So Lee, tell us. Yeah, and Sixto, say hi also.
Hi.
Yeah, that's Sixto for you. All right. Okay, so Lee, tell us about maybe a little bit about yourself. Okay, just a little bit, and then proceed with with Urban Combatives and what it is that what it's all about.
All right. Well, I was born in Southeast London in 1968. I was brought up during a period of quite rough sort of council estate. My mum was a single mum, so it was just us, and there was quite a struggle in terms of growing up, and we were poor and didn't have a lot. But to be honest, my earliest introduction to violence started very, very young. So I had some domestic violence issues at home. My mum used to attract a certain kind of ilk that would get drunk and then beat her and then beat me. And so that was my life growing up. And then I was at school. I was quite a withdrawn kid, so I kind of attracted bullying. So I realized very early in life that I needed to do something to stand up. So I think at 11 years old, I confronted the first bully, literally beat the living shit out of him, and I realized my first life lesson there, which was people only treat you the way you let them. So I went from that period. I had an uncle who took me to martial arts karate class. My initial introduction was I found this poster magazine called Kung Fu Monthly on a bus. And back then it was a poster magazine. It was all about Bruce Lee. And I just saw Bruce Lee and I just thought, I bet he don't have the life I have. And I was attracted. So now this was probably 1979. There wasn't a lot around in terms of martial arts, but my uncle took me out to do a little bit of research and find what we could find. And I started my martial arts career with karate, traditional karate, Wateroo at first. Then I moved to another part of the country, but continued, but with a different style. So I started with Wateroo, then Shotokan. And then eventually I went to Kyokushinkai. And Kyokushinkai for me was a bit of a wake-up call because they were actually hitting things with impact and breaking shit and all the rest of it. So I found that very interesting. My career continued. I never stopped. So I started training at the age of 11. So I trained cumulatively for 40 years. Around about the age of 13, I left home and I became a runaway, a street kid. I got involved very early with some unsavory type people, but they were family at the time. So I got involved. By the time I was 17, I met my first wife, where I had my first son, and I was heavily involved within football violence till I was about 19, 20. 20 years old, I went on the doors. One of the reasons I went on the doors was I was training in many, many different things, but I was still having a problem with controlling the adrenal response. So I wanted to put myself in an environment without the criminal element, where I could make some money, and I could also put myself in a situation where I would get used to regular exposure to confrontation. And that's where it began. So I used the doors. I worked on the doors for 14 years, and it was like a training laboratory. It was like I was finding out what worked and what didn't work. And the majority of the flowery shit that I'd been learning just didn't work at all. It fell apart like a chocolate teapot. Just didn't fucking work. So what I found to work more than anything straight away off the bat was preemption. So the second lesson I learned in life was, first was people only treat you the way you let them. The second is always trust your instincts. So as a street kid, if my instincts told me to turn left, I'm turning left. So when I felt the early precursors or pre-threat cue behavior was evident, I would preempt. And that would either be a preemptive type of restraint, or back in them days, you could pretty much dispatch people with your hands without too much worry, as long as you knew where the CCTV was, to be fair. But it became a training laboratory. So I continued in the martial methods, and I went from Japanese, Okinawan type styles to Chinese martial arts. I went into Wing Chun. I looked at some Choi Lei Fat, some PMAM, all this kind of thing. And then I found Junfan JKD, or JKD concepts. So I started doing what they called JKD concepts, which is a combination of Junfan Gong Fu, which was like a street class, some Filipino, what we knew as Kali then, which, since my education with Sixto, most of that was just flowery, fabricated bollocks. But what we knew as Filipino martial arts then was what we were learning from the likes of Dan and Asanto, who was a great man. And we were doing some shoot wrestling, we were doing some silat, we were doing conceptual ideas. And again, I'm working in an environment where I can, I was just testing shit. One of the turnaround things for me within the martial arts was probably early 90s. A couple of things happened. First of all, my martial arts career went in a different direction when I trained with a guy called Cordero. And at that time, Vunak had developed this asymmetrical method of counter-violence called rapid assault tactics. And it was the first ever example that I'd seen of going first and with the most. So the first with the most usually comes out best. And this was an asymmetrical dynamic, literally a one-sided beating. You're taking the fight to him, which was very different from the way the martial arts were taught before, which was always, he attacks you, you block, you counter, which, as we all know, action beats reaction. So blocking is bollocks. But the asymmetrical dynamic, so it was geared along an entry, so an eye jab or a kick in the groin, followed by a straight forward, clinch, headbutt, knee, and elbow. Well, the bits I liked most were the headbutts, knees, and elbows, because what I'd learned very early on is confrontation takes part, violent confrontation, either at confrontation range, which is where you can shake hands, or in your face. And in your face, where people know as the clinch or grab and hold of somebody, where you can headbutt, knee, elbow, bite, and gouge is really where it's at. I found myself instantly familiar and comfortable. Turning point for me, because it showed an asymmetrical dynamic, like a one-sided beating, Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah, so don't let me ramble on if you can't hear me. Just tell me.
No, but at this point, Lee, when you were doing all these things, you were still working the doors, right?
Yes, so I was working the doors from 19, and that's when I started strength training. Oh. So I started strength training to put on some size and some weight. I got into Olympic lifting, which I found suited me very well, because I have very tightly packed type 2B fibers for explosion. So I've always been very explosive. And when I took the concept of the rapid assault tactics, which was hit first and continue until the threat is down, so I took the concept of that and then applied it to what I knew, I was finding that I was dispatching people very quickly and very clinically on the doors. So the doors were a testing laboratory.
Yeah, let me
What I
just interject a little bit. Okay, for the people who don't understand what Lee is talking about when he says the doors, Lee it was actually a bouncer. All right, so that's what he says when he says he's manning the doors. So just
so it could be the terminology bouncer,
yeah,
doorman,
exactly,
cooler.
yeah,
You know, pick on a person that chilled antisocial fucking people out. You know what
exactly,
I mean?
yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
And
proceed.
what I found worked.
You were more effective as a doorman.
Yeah, basically, it wasn't so much the physical skill; it was more the concept. So the concept was attack first and keep attacking. So I took that dynamic and found it to work. What I also found to work a lot was deception. So I would deceptively, if I felt it was going to kick off and there was going to be, I would always strive where possible to be first. In the 90s, I went to train with the British Combat Association, which is Jeff Thompson and Peter Considine.
Okay,
These
Jeff
were
Thompson.
Yeah, they were considered the grandfather of modern reality-based self-defense, if you like. And what Jeff was talking about, which was very cutting edge for the time, was the effects of adrenaline, the effects of fear. So it was like the elephant in the room. Everybody felt fear and adrenaline, but nobody addressed it.
Right.
And when I realized that through Jeff Thompson's teaching, people are feeling exactly the same way, you started to realize a few things. One of the things that you needed to realize was that what you did in a physical sense had to be simple.
Right.
Very simple and gross motor works well if you're fueled by adrenaline. What doesn't work so well is complex or fine motor skills. Or anything that related to trapping or anything complex tended to fall apart. But my journey in the martial arts continued because I went then to, from Jun Fan, I went to boxing.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I went to boxing is because I wanted to improve my athletic base, the way I move. So I looked at a lot of things and I found a lot of things gave me something. Everything gave me something. So Chinese martial arts give me sensitivity. Filipino martial arts gave me flow. Boxing gave me good body mechanics, taught me how to hit hard and get used to getting hit. Thai boxing gave me mentality and physical conditioning. But around 2000, I discovered the World War II type of combatives. And what I liked most about World War II type of combatives was the attitude, the simplicity. So it had to be simple, easily installed, and retainable under the effects of adrenaline. So from there, I went and I trained with a guy called Pete Robbins, the late Pete Robbins, who is a Fairbairn historian. He was really a pivotal figure for me in my life, where he taught me a lot about martial methods and he taught me a lot about life in general. But what was good about training with him was what he taught me on a Sunday, I was applying the next Thursday, Friday, Saturday night on the doors. I was going back to him and saying, look, this worked really well. This I had to adapt in some way. So that's what I mean when there was it was like a training laboratory.
Right.
I was finding out very quickly what worked and what didn't work. And then through Pete Robbins, I met a guy called Dennis Martin, who is an absolute legend. I mean, I was 11 years old reading his regular column that he would write called On Guard in a magazine called Fighting Art. And then at 30 years old, I was fortunate enough to go and train with him. Now, he still runs a method called CQB services, close quarter battle services. And he teaches pure combative methods as were handed down to him. And I become an instructor under him. But what I found when I was training with all these people, I literally was just training for me. I was a student. But they recognized that I had some talent and would quite often try to recruit me as an instructor and want me to teach. So my first introduction to actually teaching other people was on the seminar circuit. I never really wanted to be a teacher. And when I would go and train with all these people, I would literally take what I wanted and eliminate the rest. But I needed a testing ground. So UC started in 1999, originally as a club, 4 like-minded people, all of which worked the doors, where we would just go in this gym hall. We would use the restroom, the stairwell, the door entrance, everything. We would kit up with minimal kit, what we had, and we would beat the fucking shit out of each other. And how nobody died, I really don't know. Because I didn't want to teach students, and I said to students, look, I don't want students. I just want meat puppets. I want people that I can test my shit on. If you're game for that, then I'll teach you everything I know. And we started like that at first, and then somebody would tell somebody, and somebody would tell somebody, and then before you know it, you have 15 people in class. So I had to develop some kind of curriculum. So there was a structure to it. There's only so much beating the shit out of each other that you can do.
Right.
So how it was spawned. And then another guy, a self-defense legend in this business called Dave Turton, particularly in the UK, who runs the Self-Defense Federation. He put me in touch with this publishing company that gave me the opportunity to make my first video production, which was called Fight Back, which sold globally really well and started to give me recognition. And then around about this time was when the internet was coming more into vogue, and I had a website, and then I was starting to teach internationally. I was on a circuit, and people were putting clips of me from the seminars on YouTube, and that's how my profile began. And fast forward 20 years of doing that, I've taught UC in over 40 countries. I have many sort of affiliated instructors at schools and study groups, and now it's become what you see.
Exactly.
But but it really did start from humble beginnings. I mean, if you want to know where UC actually started in terms of practice, it started in a small garage no bigger than this room. You know, which is where most combative training starts.
You know, when we started watching you, we were watching you from, you know, especially Sixto's been watching you for like, I would say 12, 15 years now.
Yeah, about.
And he would share those videos of yours with us. He'll tell you, you know, watch this guy on YouTube, and you would all train in this one small garage, and there were like 6 big guys. And I remember this is one video. I think it was just you. There was not even an explanation. It was just you and like 3 other guys, and they were just trying to beat you up. And then you were, you know, it was crazy. It was crazy, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I did that. Why? You know that in any field that you're in, and martial methods are no different. Yes, right. People that talk shit, the keyboard commandos that have never done anything,
right?
They're still living at home with them. They're 40-year-old virgins jerking off to red juice. They've got no fucking love. We'll probably edit that out. But
no. I love. We're keeping that. We're keeping that.
Those kind of people have got so many opinions, and they want to force all of them upon you. Most of them shit. So what I decided to do was, in that video, there was actually a full video clip which says UC scenario training. And it was 3 of my top students, 2 of which were professional doormen for over 20 years, so veterans. But everybody in my group could box and could grapple. Because I would insist that they have an athletic base. You know, the basis of all combat foundation, if you go right back to the pancration or right back to the Spartans, is pugilism and wrestling. You need to know how to hit. You need to know how to take a hit. You need to know how to manhandle, and you need to be familiar with getting manhandled. So these are 3 guys that were fucking knockout specialists. And I said to them, I put on minimal kit, just gum shield and a pair of MMA gloves. And they had a helmet and body armor, groin guard. And I said, look, one goal is a 3-on-1 situation. I need to get out the garage. You ain't going to let me. Fucking knock me out. And if you knock me out, I will give you 1 month or free gym fees. So there was an incentive, right? And they really wanted to fucking be the one that knocked out Lee Morrison, so they were all very gay, the instructor-student respect thing went out the fucking window that night. They wanted to knock me the fuck out.
And who doesn't want free stuff, right? Who doesn't want free stuff?
Yeah. Not long story short, you see the video, within 10 seconds, 3 of them are dispatched and I'm at the exit. You can't argue with that.
Right.
How do you argue with that? When you add total non-compliance to the equation, where the subject has an incentive to fucking stop what you do from working, you can't argue with it. And it's the typical thing. True. There's a saying. They say, when somebody does something wrong, nobody forgets. When somebody does something right, nobody remembers. So when you do something right, nobody says anything, right? But when you do something wrong, they say everything. Well, the fact after I put up that clip, they said nothing. That said everything. Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We used to do a lot of stringent scenario testing. How fucking nobody died? I've got no idea. We built about 3 helmets. There's about 6 now that we used, and we probably had close to over 700 full contact scenarios in that year. And 2 occasions, somebody still got knocked out with the helmet.
Right.
So if you imagine no helmet, Christ, I shudder to think, but you've got to test shit. And that's why Combatives only attracts 15% of the martial population. Because people want it easy. They don't want to test shit.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is what makes us all in the minority. It's what makes Carlos Hermanos in the minority. It's what makes UC in the minority. It's what makes anything where you are willing to immerse. Break the eggs to make an omelette. Yeah. Most people don't want that, particularly people from the last 3 decades who are socially consistent, socially built to be fucking soft, conditioned to be soft.
Right.
Modern man is not a fucking old school geezer. Modern man is not a warrior. They're more worried about how the hair looks and the skinny fit jeans. So, Combatives is not for these people. It's more, it's more for old school people that want to. You've got to have what I would call a character X-ray. Right. If you want to know what you're made of and you want to know how you will operate under real fight conditions, well, the best option would be fight. Like, it would be irresponsible of me to tell you to go and get into fights, although it would help. It would be irresponsible. So the next best thing that you have to do is pressure test.
Right.
If you want to know how you will stand up under pressure, you've got to simulate. And when you simulate, you've got to simulate under conditions where if you fuck it up, you get knocked out. There has to be a risk. There has to be a risk. Do you know what I mean? So when we went into scenarios, it wasn't just a case of, put on some kit, flurry and pitter-patter. We were looking to hurt each other. The only thing that wasn't there was malice. There was no intent or malice, but we were looking to fuck each other up. And if you did what you did and it worked, well, you're on to something.
Right.
Analyzed principles and concepts work much better than techniques.
For the I just like to mention for the listeners out there, for people watching, and you have no idea what urban combatives is. In a nutshell, urban combatives is a form of self-protection wherein there's a lot of preemption. You are proactive, not reactive. So you're dictating the action because of things that are happening around you. So Lee, could you give us a brief explanation of what UC is?
Sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
When people see UC on YouTube and they see me just doing my thing in a physical sense with a lot of aggression, they think it's all about violence. They think it's all about being aggressive and everything else. And to a degree, that's a big degree of it. But really, Combatives is at the extreme end of the martial umbrella. So you have traditional martial arts, then you have combat sport, then you have pseudo-type martial arts that are tried to be combatives, but it's just really martial arts in genes. Then you have self-defense at your local leisure centre taught by an ex-retired British soldier who's teaching you how to break away from somebody holding your wrist. Bollocks. Then you have so-called reality-based self-defense, inside of which there is a lot of good and there is a lot of horseshit, right? Finally, you have combatives. Well, if you define the word, if you look up the word combative in an English dictionary, it means somebody was argumentative and willing to fight. The subject was combative. Or you might refer to it as a place. This place is really dangerous. It's very combative in the evening, you know?
Right.
The word combatives, plural, doesn't exist in the dictionary because it's a modern word coined by the modern self-protection fraternity. And basically what it means is this: combatives is any method, principle, concept, way of thinking, or physical skill that has proved its worth under real fight duress conditions. So in the presence of adrenaline and fear, fatigue, confusion, disorientation, non-cognitive state when you are limbic, but what you do, if it gets you out the scrape, it was considered combative. So combatives are purely methods of dealing with violence. That's what they are.
Right.
Now there's three elements to that, which is called self-protection in a whole. The first is the most important, and this is what people don't see when they see the physical videos. The most important thing is learning to become street smart. So cultivating habits of personal security that will allow you to avoid most confrontation. So the very first thing I say is the best self-protection of all, don't fucking be there. So enhance your confident body language profile, enhance your awareness, gain an understanding of pre-threat cue behavior, know how violence manifests. If you cultivate those things, you will avoid 95% potential violence. So the first element of self-protection or combatives is personal security, what we call soft skills. Non-physical options for avoidance may include awareness, situational control, having the ability to verbally dissuade and communicate, etc., etc. The next two elements that make up self-protection or combatives are both physical. The first is the ideal. If it's going to get physical, you need to be the feeder in a relationship. So we aim to be, as you said, proactive or preemptive. So content of what we do is orientated by the context of the situation. So if I could solve the situation by shoving somebody, I wouldn't hit them. If I could solve the situation by striking somebody, I wouldn't hit them with a brick. If I escalate my level of violence, it's because the context of the situation dictates that I must. And what we need to understand now in this day and age, society has become extremely volatile, life is cheap, and people are extremely violent. And if you end up in a situation now with somebody, there's a good chance, one, they have a weapon, and two, they have friends, in which case you are going to face a threat disparity. You could die, which now creates the context for an elevated use of force, if that makes sense. So the best chance you have in the physical dynamic, if you feel it's going to go, you can't escape, you can't avoid, you can't de-escalate, hit first. Now, the ideal would be that you hit first and you clinically end the problem. So imagine that for a second. Imagine two people in front of you, you put yourself in a position where you could deal with one, you believe both have got a weapon and they could hurt you, and you preemptively knock out one subject. Let's say the guy's down and he's out, and now you physically posture aggressively to the second subject who now is deterred. Well, from one preemptive strike, you have prevented further violence. Do you understand?
Right.
If I didn't preempt and they attacked me first, one, they would both attack me at the same time, which would mean I'd be fighting on two fronts. 2, they would bring a weapon into the equation. And 3, the level of violence that they'd be willing to give me once I'm on the floor and they're stamping on my head like a Coke can would be absolutely exponential. So the idea of preemption, where people say, oh, you mustn't hit first, I put it to you that the only thing that's going to give you the highest probability of success is if you attack first and keep attacking so they've got no possible ability to recover or retaliate. That will give you the best chance. So one of the third lessons I learned outside of any technique or anything else, nothing about technique, is be first. And if you are first, it doesn't matter what the strike is. It doesn't matter if it's a strike or a punch. It doesn't matter if it's a Wing Chun punch, a karate punch, or a boxing punch. Just hit the cunt first and keep attacking. That's what works. And what is most antisocial about that is social conditioning has conditioned that element of antisocialness, if you like, out of themselves. Because people say, oh, that's antisocial. Fucking violence is antisocial. If these two miscreants kick living fuck out of me and I wake up with a drip in my arm and my own mum don't recognise me no more, I would say that's fucking antisocial, wouldn't you? In which case, if you want to deal with antisocial, guess what? You've got to be antisocial. That's why I use the metaphor. You want to put out a big fire, you need a big fucking bucket of water. So the first physical dynamic in UC is proactive. Now, you can't always be attentive of your environment. We're human. We make mistakes. So there's a likelihood that at some point in your life, you could find yourself in a physical confrontation where you are reacting, where they have done something to you and you've got to try and do something back. That's not the ideal, because action always beats reaction. In my experience, the best defense is a fucking good offense. But if somebody does become assaultive to you, you must have contingency plan. The guy tackles me, he threatens me with a knife, he starts punching me, grabs me in some way. I must know methods of counter-violence to deal with that. And that brings us to the third element of self-protection, which is a reactive dynamic. So the first element of self-protection, personal security. Second element, proactive physical use of force. Third element, reactive use of force. Now, if you look at the last element, and then you look at Krav Maga or any of these so-called reality-based methods that have taken the world by storm, some of them are really good. I'm not dissing anybody. But every single class you go to begins with a reactive dynamic. Okay, this guy grabbed you, and now you must do A, B, and C in order to deal with it. Well, that's bollocks straight off the bat, because what it's not taking into account is, why did the guy grab you? Why did the guy hit you first? Why did he attack you first? Where was your awareness? Why wasn't you attentive of the environment? And if the guy did just jump out and grab you by surprise, how the fuck do you think you're going to feel? Your asshole is going to go like a manhole, and you are going to go from cognitive brain to limbic brain, which means you've got the intelligence of a dog. Well, good luck now trying to make any of the complex reactive techniques work. They won't. They will fall apart like a paper pump unless you have been there before. So UC really is not a system. It's not a style. It's a bunch of intelligent concepts that are principle-based, that have been concluded by experience. Not just my experience. People who have had similar experience have come to similar conclusions. And what we all agree on is that the one that goes first with the most usually comes out the best.
Right, right.
And like I said, combatives is at the extreme end of the self-protection umbrella. It's considered the dark sheep of the family. You understand? It's only called upon when you really need to let the war dog off the lead. That's where it belongs. So combatives is not for the guy that looks at your girlfriend or spills your drink in a pub or nicks your parking space, although that is how violence can happen. It is for a real threat to life, where somebody in front of you wants to end you. You're dealing with a weapon, you're dealing with multiple assailants, it's a stronger male against a woman, a stronger aggressive male against a smaller young adult, where there's a disparity. But what you find is UC really attracts warriors. So I've been over to you in the Philippines a couple of times. I brought couple of my people, you've seen my people. A lot of my people are beasts because it attracts fighters. It really does. But UC is actually not for those people. It's actually for the layman that is scared of his own shadow. That's who it's for. It's designed to give you the highest probability now as well. So unlike the martial arts, you learn how to stand for 3 months before you learn how to move. What you learn in combative is simple, easily installed, retainable under pressure, which means if I have a problem as soon as I come out of the gym in the car park, what I've been training should fucking work.
Yeah, it should be applied, yeah.
Right.
And that's basically UC in a nutshell, really.
Exactly. Well, personally, my experience with UC is mainly from Sixto. Sixto's been my teacher for a while, and I remember even in the early part of my training, it's been Sixto who was telling me about you. In fact, you know, in the beginning, I was thinking like everyone else. I'm like, this guy's bullshit. I'm like, you know, he's telling everybody to hit first. I'm like, you know, that's crazy. You know, it's not fair. You know, as somebody who's been practicing martial arts for a long time, exactly, and you know, it took a while for him to actually convince us that your stuff actually works. So my question is geared towards Sixto. So Sixto, how is it that you found out about this guy, and what made you think that his shit actually works?
Okay, my story is similar to Lee, except for the fighting part. Anyway, with the learning part is I started with karate, taekwondo, Muay Thai, jiu-jitsu. Then MMA came along. Every time I kept on thinking what I need to defeat this guy who's bigger, stronger, faster. And I realized this, I can't. Then one day I was with Dr. Arvin Sese. Remember the guy? The doctor who's a military fanatic.
Yeah.
He was a guy who introduced me to the concept of combatives. Actually, it was more of military combatives. Then I did my research, and finally I found you. At least with combatives, it made me realize it gives me a chance to fight a bigger guy, a stronger guy, somebody who has a weapon, and somebody who has friends. With the other martial arts I studied, it was more or less geared towards dueling, and somebody will always be better than I. And when I learned, at least during that time, the concept of combatives, I realized there's a lot of some of the stuff that you teach, like the soft skills, you cheat to win. So that's what really attracted me to combatives, and specifically UC.
Yeah, it's funny because most of the critics of UC, because you talked about the three main concepts that surrounds UC, which is self-protection in street marts, being proactive and reactive. And it's funny because it's such hearing you talk about it, it's such a deep. I know you don't like to call it the system, but lack of a better word, no, it's such a deep system, and that most people don't realize. And they mainly get stuck on the proactive part. They say that, you know, you hit first. So, you know, you guys, you go around hitting people. That's like the farthest from the truth, because, you know, the self-protection aspect is so deep. In fact, what really convinced me, you know, or sold me to the idea of urban combatives was when Sixto was explaining to us, you know, what the street march or the soft skill part was, which was absent in every other kind of martial art that I've ever encountered. And I've been fortunate enough to talk to you about it, and it's so detailed, you know, and it's sad because people don't realize it. They just think that we go around hitting people first. Exactly.
Like I said, content is dictated by context. So if I've had to preemptively strike somebody first, I've not just walked up to them and struck them. Yeah. So there really isn't any preemption. If I've had to preemptively strike somebody, the person has approached me to give me a problem, right? They've triggered an instinct. First thing I'm going to do is try to leave. If I tried to leave and they stepped in front of me and arrested my movement and wouldn't allow me to leave, I would strive to verbally de-escalate. If they're not listening and they slap my hands down and they're telling me that, you know, in a body language, non-verbal, physical sense, they're about to attack me, they have created the context for me to preempt.
Right.
That's why I would preempt. Now, even though I was preemptive and I hit first, I didn't start this. They fucking started it by psychologically giving me a problem and trying to impose their will. If they had never done that, I would have not preempted. If they'd have let me leave, I would have not preempted. If they would have let me talk it down, I would have not preempted. But they are imposing their will with a very brief verbal interview designed to probe and intimidate. And in that moment, when I've realized the conversation's coming to an end, they're going to hurt me, I have the honest belief I'm going to be injured if I do nothing, that's when I will preempt. Now, under the context of that, that is legal and fair enough. Now, the legal system will protect the criminal always. So you can do everything you should do in a physical sense to protect yourself. And from a moral and legal moral compass and legal point of view, with good ethics, you could do the same thing. And you could still get fucked over by the law because, you know, the justice system is unjust in my opinion. But the actual action of being preemptive is the only thing really that's going to give somebody of a lesser ability a highest probability. It all comes down to the three principles of close court battle: surprise, speed, and violent action. And basically what that is the one that goes first most will come out best. It's going to give you the best chance. You could be preemptive, continue your attack, and still fucking lose. There's no guarantees. But from a strategic, principle-based point of view, it will give you the best chance. You've got to think about street violence as war. It is the microcosm of war. And, you know, there's tactics in war, and you want to learn tactics. So soft skills are based around becoming street smart, having a tactical plan of action. And if you have to be physical, well, your tactical plan of action or your soft skills fail. So the physical is the contingency plan for that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what separates UC mainly from anything else, even any other form of combative teaching that I've seen, there's many great people in this field, but they don't talk about psychology.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
The psychology of violence is everything. Psychom is everything. You need to know how the enemy operates, and you need to know your capability of dealing with it. So Musashi said it, Sun Tzu said it. Know yourself, know the enemy. And part of that is understanding how you're going to feel in a psychological, emotional sense. Expect and accept adrenaline and understand it. See, the thing about martial arts is the term martial arts says it all. Martial art is art. It's play. Whereas the real martial jitsu part is the warring part. But what does martial mean? It means warring. That's what it is. You can't have a war in art. There's nothing artistic about taking somebody apart in an alley. Trust me, I've done it. But the martial part to me is mindset.
Right.
Mindset is the martial part. And that's the part that martial artists don't get. You got to get your fucking head right. One of the primary lessons, let me give you in 2 seconds, right? I can give you, or 2 sentences, I can give you the my conclusions of 40 years of this shit, right? First, people only treat you the way you let them. Second, your best chance in a physical sense is be first. Learn to hit fucking hard, go first, and keep going till there's nothing left to fight about. Third, in no particular order, before you do any of that, you've got to get your head right. There's 3 battles in any confrontation. First battle is with yourself. You have to manage your emotional state in order to access whatever skill set or weapon that you have. Otherwise, it's redundant. The second fight is with whoever you're dealing with. And the third fight is the consequences that happen after that. Legal issues, potential comebacks, etc., etc. All elements of violence are shit. That's why I say the best self-protection of all is avoid it. Don't be there. But if you want to take part in a martial warring sense, then you have to have a martial mindset.
Right.
And that's where it's missing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's ironic. Hearing you talk, it's ironic that your biggest critics, all right, your biggest critics, I would have to say, in my experience, are people who practice MMA. All right, they're your biggest, at least with my experience. All right, they talk to me about it, and you know, what's this thing that you guys do, and it's ironic because they criticize you, but then they don't teach you anything about, you know, the soft skills and how to protect yourself. They just teach you how to fight. So who's the more violent person? I mean, you know, they just teach you how to fight. They don't teach you how to protect yourself. They don't teach you to avoid fighting. And yet you're the one being, you know, criticized for that, for being preemptive. But
my skin is way too thick now to give a quarter fuck about what anyone thinks of me.
Yeah,
I mean, to be honest, I mean, you know, a lot of martial, I've had differing reception from MMA crowd. A lot of amateur MMA athletes who think they're all that packet of biscuits. They're the ones that usually diss reality-based or combative stuff. I've met a few professional MMA guys and worked with them and shown them, and I've even shown them some dirty shit that they can get away with in the cage. And, you know, they're like, wow, man, I never thought about it that way. I mean, look at the guy recently, the MMA fighter that had a home invasion.
Yeah.
And he had no effect at dealing with the guy. He hit him several times. He had no effect. He was gassed. He was controlling adrenaline. So you tell me where in real violence that model fits that model. It doesn't. You have to have an understanding of predatory behavior. You have to have the preparation to control your own emotional state. And you have to have the ability to instantaneously access that extremely antisocial part of yourself. If you are on a mental preparation level, shopping in the supermarket, to a mental preparation level to fight of 0, and somebody has already implemented the victim orientation process on you, is walking towards you with a preparation of violence set at about 8, then when you suddenly realize, shit, I'm in a violent situation, how the fuck are you going to mentally catch up to 10 in order to surpass it? You're not. You look at the dynamic for all MMA fighting, it begins with feeling you out, building it up.
Yeah,
What happens in the first 5 seconds of an MMA fight? Nothing. What happens in the first 5 seconds of a street fight? Everything. It's over. So you have to have the ability to access the instantaneous level 10 of aggression that will allow you to totally eclipse what you're facing. And that is an emotional conditioning thing, not a physical conditioning thing. And that is the problem that Matey suffered with during the home invasion. He was still in fucking denial of what's happening whilst he's trying to take part. And that's what will always separate us.
Yeah, it's that guy you're talking about is this UFC fighter. He's called his name is Anthony Smith, and he actually contended for the title. So this guy's a high level guy, and what happened was the guy, the home invasion guy, a guy who invaded his home, was actually an amateur wrestler, a highly ranked amateur wrestler, who had some mental problems. And it's funny because I saw this clip, or somebody posted this video of the guy being interviewed, and it was a news article about the home invasion, and it was actually used by MMA guys to prove that combatives doesn't work. You know how crazy that is? They were saying, you know, even Anthony Smith, who's a high level UFC guy, had a hard time. How do you expect combatives guys to react to the same kind of danger?
He had a hard time controlling the adrenaline.
Yes.
He had a hard time controlling the emotional response that was totally unfamiliar to him. Exactly. That's why he was fatigued, and that's why his shots didn't have the power they would normally have.
Right.
So my counter argument to that would be the elements that were missing for Anthony Smith.
Anthony Smith, yes. Anthony
The
Smith.
elements that were missing for Anthony Smith are the primary elements that we seek to build. In
Right.
which case, I'm not going to look at this situation of a home invasion with denial. As soon as I hear the first bang, it's going to wake me up. The second bang will see me up, shoes on, with a weapon in my hand.
Right.
What does that tell you? That tells you on a mental preparation level to engage instantaneously, I'm ready. It's not, oh no, this must be some mistake. Maybe I can talk to the guy. No. I saw that Anthony Smith interviewed by Tony Blauer. Tony Blauer filled in the blanks for him of why he was ineffectual. He said, you know, your skill set, however, your titles, your training, your ability fell out your ass because there was an emotional hurdle that you couldn't negotiate.
Right.
And that is what makes combatives different. That's why when they say combatives training, true combatives training, is 90% emotional, 10% skill. That's what they mean.
Exactly.
So they can naysay as much as they like. You know what I mean? I'm not going to get into their arena in a cage and fight them on their rules. I'll ambush them when they go in the restroom, stab living fuck out of them while they're taking a piss. That's the difference. That's the difference. You know, I have that ability to access that level of savagery. I've got no doubt about it. But that doesn't make me a bad person.
Right.
So if you look at Jordan Peterson when he talks about even people in power saying that any man that's capable of violence is not a good man. Well, that's not true. Because if you're a good man, you would seek to protect everything you love, correct? And if you would seek to protect everything you love against evil people, there's going to be a need for you to use violence.
Right.
So a good man will use violence to protect what stands behind him. He will not use violence to hurt what he hates stood in front of him, which is what most violence is about. So in order for you to be a good man, you have to be capable of extreme violence in order to protect what you love.
Right.
But so-called good people say, oh no, if you're capable of violence, you're not a good man. Basically, that's a cop-out excuse because they're scared to employ violence. So they make it out as bad so that they can get out of it. It's just bullshit. A good man is capable of violence. So what I mean by that, when I say to you, I have the ability to instantaneously access a level of savagery that will, in my mind, eclipse anyone I'm facing, that sounds a kind of an unbalanced thing. Fucking hell, is the guy stable? But I'm completely stable. There's complete balance because the other side of that coin is I'm empathic, caring. I love my family. I look after the people that I care about. You know me, right? So I'm capable of kindness and empathy, but at the same time, there's a reverse side. There's all coins have two sides. And those that diss what I do, or diss antisocialness, diss the use of extreme violence in order to counter violence, are just using an excuse. They're just scared people that don't have the balls to stand up. You know what I mean? In my opinion, for whatever it's worth.
You know what hit me the most of all the things you said? You said, you know, all the things we do. Because you were talking about violence. You know, you had a, you know, your life is very tumultuous. You were exposed to so much violence. And you're saying that you see everything that you do is not for the fighter. They're not for the beasts. They're for the regular guys who can't protect themselves. And that makes so much sense. I mean, you know, you're not training UFC fighters. You're not training professional fighters. You're training regular people how to protect themselves.
To survive.
And it, you know, it makes so much sense. And I don't understand. Yeah, exactly. You know,
that's it. I'm not even teaching you how to fight. I'm teaching you how to prevail.
Exactly. Yes.
To prevail,
by any means necessary, fair or unfair, because there's no fucking rules.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they'll never get it. They'll never get it as long as they got a hole in them. They really won't. And it, you know, like I said, you know, I couldn't give a quarter gram fuck what they think. You know, my fucking door's open. If someone wants to come down and test my shit, 52 years old, mate. I'm still as game as I was when I was 20. You know? Come on down. I want you to. Come and get some.
You know, I have to tell everyone though. I have to tell you know, this guy is crazy. He talks about violence and everything. But me and Sixto, we've known him for a while. He's been coming here for the past couple of years, and this guy is actually a pussycat. So, the guy's the nicest guy in the world. When Sixto and I were talking, we were pointing at each other like, no, you talk to him. No, you talk to him. Because we see these scary videos of you, and then you finally come here, and you are a freaking teddy bear, man. I was actually disappointed.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway.
Most true people that you would consider, to use the term warrior, have usually had a lot of adversity in their life, and that adversity or discomfort has made them grow. So in my opinion, the most dangerous people I've ever met are also the most humble.
Right.
If you really know violence, you hate violence. The only reason I know I'm not a total sociopath, I am somewhat of a sociopath, but the only reason I know I'm not totally a sociopath is that I don't like to hurt. In fact, I hate violence. I'm just fucking good at it. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
That's the difference. I do not enjoy violence. If I've had to be violent with somebody, then I feel in some way that I failed in terms of escalation or something like that.
Well, yeah. Well, okay. We have a.
But to be honest, the world. I'll close that with the world is fucking changing. We're becoming more and more unstable. I think now the need to access that what they call the Gemini principle. You want to discover and embrace your dark side, and you want to know where it belongs. You want to be able to call upon it when you need it. I mean, it doesn't matter that doesn't mean that you have to live your life like that. I cry at sad films. I stroke little puppy dogs. I help old ladies across the street, whether they want to fucking go or not.
Yeah.
But I strive to be a good human being. If you fuck with me, I'll steal your face, and that's the way I've always been.
Yeah.
At least you know where you are, right?
Yeah. You know how much of a softie this guy is? He likes pineapples on his pizza. But anyway, no one's perfect. Yeah, we have. All right, I think we have enough, Lee. If you have, some last words to everyone listening out there.
Right?
Yeah.
In my opinion, and it is just my opinion, from a combative, accumulative, eclectic point of view, this is where you want to be looking. You see Carlos Hermanos and LIBRE. That combination together, in my opinion, of 41 plus years of martial practice, there's nothing better out there than that for me. So, that I really recommend that you embrace the lesser understood bastard children of the martial world. And that would be us.
We appreciate that. Anyway, yeah. So, Sixto, any parting words before we let people go?
Okay, I just wanted to say Lee reminds me of a military guy I know. He's an ex-ranger. He's been fighting terrorists all his life. Has been exposed to all types of violence. He's retired now. Remember, Bax, you met him, right?
Yeah, of course.
A few times.
Of course.
Every time we meet him, he talks about peace. He doesn't talk about anything violent. He just wants to have fun, wants to help people.
He didn't want to shoot guns in the shooting range, remember? He didn't want to shoot.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't want to shoot guns. But he was a marksman. Huh? He used to be a marksman. He used to be a sniper. Again, he's the person I'm reminded of every time I see Lee.
So there you have it, Lee. Yeah, Lee. Any few words? Last few words before I let you go. There's Lee. Lee. I think we lost Lee. Lee, you still there?
Okay, Dax.
All right. Yeah. I think we lost Lee.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway.
This interview is more of a seminar. It's I learned a lot from this interview.
Actually, yes, me also, and I hope the people listening out there, you know, that there was a wealth of information that came out. You know, whether you were a critic of combatives or you know, if you follow combatives, I think there was a lot of learning here today. And we actually have a seminar with Lee Sixto and Scott Babb of Libre Fighting. It's called Triple Summit, the Triple Summit series. It's online. We'll tell you more about it in the coming days. But yeah, we lost Lee, but thank you, Lee, for being for guesting. We really appreciate it. And for everyone out there, thank you for joining us, and see you again next time. Thank you.